Okay, so let me get started. So this is a presentation about the OpenPOWER web systems. So an overview of what we had, what we want to achieve, what we have achieved. Again, who am I? So I'm the TSC chair since 2020. My company is also a silver member. I'm mostly in the software world. We have our own Linux distribution for Power. And then you can read the rest. Introduction. So if you today go to openpowerfoundation.org, what you're basically hitting is a WordPress site, which is an older version. We have a lot of plugins which aren't used anymore, mostly not used. We have a resource catalog that is custom built, which takes very long to load, both from an end user perspective as from a uploading new documents. The number of contributors that we can actually add is very limited because it's very complex to do stuff. There's no actual documentation on how to use it or how to update it. In most cases, it's very slow, very cumbersome to update and to maintain. And after looking a little bit further and harder, it seems very difficult to automate and to actually do anything further with it, because it would require a lot of work. For the member site, what we have is a member portal. It's called Causeway. It's a monolithic software, which is good because it has all functionality in one portal. It does that also because it has a lot of custom built features which were customized by the foundation, which were customized for the foundation. But it's limited to members only, and we can't really open that up to the public. It's running on an ancient stack, so the backend is there very old. Another thing is it's not running on a Power-based system. It is a single tool for the members, so that is a good thing. But it's becoming very cumbersome to work with when we want to do more than just what its function is built. So the functionality that Causeway provides is very good, but extending that is not very easy, and that's where we were hitting the limits. So what did we decide? We decided to look at some new web systems. So what do we want to do there? We want to get a better design from a technical point of view. So something that we can maintain, and that if newer people come into the foundation, and at some point I won't be the TSC, James might not be the ED, and people will change and evolve, that the newer people can still use this design and not have a lot of overhead in learning it or using it. From a user perspective, we want to have a better design also, in the sense that we want to have members have certain functionality, while non-members also get certain functionality, because we don't want to exclude the non-members like in the past. We want to have a more public-facing, a more open collaboration. And then mostly from the TSC side, so from the technical side, we wanted to have a lot of automation so that we avoid doing manual tasks, and we can actually concentrate on the work and let the automation do its work in the back end for us. Some people call this the DevOps concept. It's also bringing some of the work groups together, which is why I did the previous presentation about the work groups. So forget thinking about just a work group as a work group, and think more about how can they collaborate with people. But for that, we need to give them also the tools to collaborate. We have also seen that if we do give people some power to do stuff, they will actually do it. We wanted it to run on Power. We are proclaiming that Power is the best solution. We should also use it. On the other hand, we don't want to reinvent the wheel. If there are wheels, we can use components to build our race car. And so we can utilize open source software, which can be easily ported or just runs on Power. So this is the visual representation, which is fairly complex. I'll basically start at the bottom. So you have non-members and you have members, and we want them to interact with all of these systems and get access to all of it. On the front here at the bottom are the systems where most of the members and non-members actually get into contact with. So we have our chat system, which is today being used for this event, for instance, which is bridged with Slack and with an IRC channel on Libera Chat. So we actually have the naming space OpenPOWER there. And so work groups can have discussions there. Work groups can have interactions. People from Slack can get the notifications. We also have a discussion board. And if you create topics in specific discussion boards, it will actually send out a notification to the chat system, which then sends it out to Slack and IRC, which means, let's say there's a new meeting or some update in the meeting link, you send that on the discussion system, it goes to the chat system and propagates that to Slack and Libera. Similarly, we have a Kanban system, which basically is a Trello-like system where you can have to-do lists on. But again, if something is updated there, it sends to the chat sends it then to Slack and IRC, and both members and non-members can get notifications on things in real time. So from a perspective of what the user sees, it's using more interactive and direct toolings. For the front-facing thing, we are separating the website, so we're doing a redesign. It will be a static website, so it will load very fast. It will have some dynamic components, but we're also going to create landscapes, and these landscapes will basically give you an overview of which hardware is there that is power ready, which hardware is like using OpenPOWER, which might be the open version of the power stack, which are maybe using some of the closed ones. Both also on the software, we want to do that. So we want to make sure that there's a listing of which software is available on Power directly, what has been tested. Similarly for Silicon, we want to do that. And for the distributions, we also want to do that. So you can actually see which distributions are available on Power and how they basically just function with the actual link to that page. So for instance, the FreeBSD link can be made there to the actual page where FreeBSD has their PPC64LE installation guide. Similarly, we want to do that for a lot of software, and also for hardware. Like these are the hardware that is using OpenPOWER. The AC922 being an example, and then maybe in the long term also, how can you acquire these software or technologies or hardware? So from the front end, a redesign for the landscape, we will reuse existing software. We have forms and actual mail addresses non-members and members can mail to. That then comes down into the request system. And then we have a member portal. We have the minute meeting website, which is generated again from nodes which are created and then put into Git. And from Git, it then flows into our automation tool, which will then build the meeting website and update the minute meeting. So for LibreBMC, you can actually see that already today, given that it's public. And so a non-member can go to the LibreBMC minute meeting page and see the minute meetings of that specific working group. If a member goes in, he will actually or go through the website or go directly to the minute meeting website. The minute meeting website will then use our OpenPOWER passport, which is an LDAP and a single sign-on system to verify that that person is a member, that member has access to that work group, and then get those minute meetings also. Like I mentioned, we have a node taking system, which once the notes have been taken, you push them to Git, and then Git does all the work to actually create all these systems. The red ones are the ones that are typically not hit by users, but more used by the members or non-members. So a member will not hit the LDAP system directly. It will use one of the white ones or the green ones to hit an LDAP. But it needs what we call an OpenPOWER passport, which is a unique ID. And with that unique ID, that person can then get access to the systems. The green ones are the ones which are member only, which you see is fairly limited. And the white ones are the ones which are member and non-member accessible. And of course, there's some granularity in members see a little bit more, non-members see a little bit less. The light bluish ones are external ones, so GitLab. So from our own Git instance, we actually push to GitLab. So there's a mirror. People who are accustomed to using GitLab can actually go to GitLab and find all our public facing repositories. For GitHub, we actually have a two-way stream there. So people who are used to working with GitHub can actually push to GitHub, and it will then push to our own system. And we are doing this now for a few of the projects and repositories there. And so you see these are the external systems we have. And then we have the files, which is basically where we can store files and make them accessible to the outside world, which has a file system based backend, but also an object store, because the CI/CD pipeline will push it to the object store. So in more detail, we want to use existing open source software. So you'll see all of it is open source software that was available. Many things have been adjusted and tweaked to our needs, of course. Some of them heavily tweaked, some of them slightly tweaked. All of this is running on Power systems, so all on Power 8 or Power 9 machines. So we have what we call the OpenPOWER Foundation Passport, which is a single sign-on system, which uses OpenLDAP and Autelia in the backend. So OpenLDAP is basically an LDAP system, and then Autelia does the single sign-on. For the website, we are using a static site builder. So we have Hugo.io, which is a fairly fast and big static site builder that is being used. For the landscapes, we will actually replicate the work that the CNCF, so the Linux Foundation, has done, and recreate that landscape for our needs. The member portal is a different theme of Hugo. So it's again a static website with some JavaScript to do some more dynamic things, so that you see what work groups you belong to. We then have our Git system, which is Gitee. And Gitee is basically the tool which hosts all our Git repository. So we moved actually away from GitHub and migrated everything to Gitee, which is our own backend. That gives us the advantage of having private repositories and public repositories. We can then have these public repositories fully managed by the foundation. You can still use your GitHub and GitLab login to actually get access, so you don't need to create a specific Gitee user ID. If you have a passport and you use the single sign-on portal, you will actually get directly access to that. Again, here the two-way arrow for GitHub, because we do two-way syncing. For GitLab, we're only doing push syncing, so Gitee will push to GitLab, but we don't actually pull in from GitLab. And then we have the discussion system, which is basically Discourse in the backend. Discourse is our forum/mailing list alternative. And this gives us the ability to also do some calendaring functionality. And as I previously said, any topic you create in specific categories will actually link with our chat system, which will then link through a bridge with our IRC channels. The chat system is Mattermost. So it's a self-hosted Slack alternative, which gives you the ability to chat very easily. That's linked with our single sign-on. We're still having some functionality issues there, but we're working on that. But you can basically, or you should be able to use your single sign-on to get access to that. For the Kanban, we're using Wakan in the backend. So Wakan is a Trello alternative, self-hosted, and it also interacts with Mattermost, sends out notifications. In a later stage, we want that to also work with Git. And so if you create an issue on Git, it comes into the Kanban board. It can then be assigned to somebody, given a timeline, and then we can move forward on that. For files, we're using Nextcloud, fairly straightforward, very easy to use file system. It does have an object store at the back end also, so that our automation tool can push in data from there, and makes it also easy to extend at a later stage. For documents, previously all the documents were done in DocBooks. Now we are giving working groups the option to do DocBooks or LaTeX by default, and any other one if they need another format. And so for documents, we are using Overleaf Share LaTeX in the backend, which once you log in, then you again use your single sign-on LDAP connection, and you get access to the documents. So Overleaf is a more dynamic version of it. It gives you the ability to see the changes in a more visual way than the traditional LaTeX one. So Overleaf is a combination of LaTeX on one side, and what you see is what you get on the other side. Similarly, for nodes, we use HedgeDoc. They have the same concept. So you have Markdown on one side, and then the actual visual representation of Markdown on the other side. We use this to take notes, but also the minute meetings. And that gives us then the ability to download these minute meetings, put them in the Git repository, and from the Git repository, they come on a minute meeting website, which is an Hugo-based website, which does static updates, but also calculates like which are the voting members, was this a quorum meeting. It also shows you when the next meeting is scheduled. So it gives you a whole bunch of extra information. We have the request system, which is basically a request tracker in the backend, and we use email or web forms to get data in there. So you will see specific emails, addresses that actually gets pushed into queues here. Then the work group chairs or anybody from the work group can take that up, follow that up, and make sure that those requests are handled. In the past, this was done using email, but then email gets scattered and isn't always as visible. Here we have a timeline, and we can actually put some SLAs against it and make sure things work. For the CI/CD pipeline, we're using Woodpecker, which is a CI/CD pipeline tool, which gives us the ability to do some more testing. We still need to figure out if this is the only tool we'll need for CI/CD, given that we also want to do some hardware CI/CD, which might require us to have different toolings. If you registered for this event, you actually went through our pre-reg system, which allows us to run events and registrations. The CFP portal, if you're a speaker, you might have interacted with this, which gives us the ability to run events and schedule the events and do updates like we did today. And then we'll have volunteering systems where we can actually assign volunteers to do things and give them the ability to follow up on what they are doing and what they're not doing. And most likely, this is not all we need. So the single tool is being replaced with a whole bunch of open source tools, but it gives us the ability to basically substitute or add more systems based on our needs. Also tomorrow, if for instance, we decide that for the Kanban, we don't want to use Wacom and we want to use something else, we could just substitute this out. Another option would be that if nobody ever uses this, we basically just disable this without having to adjust the entire stack. So having smaller components and using open source software, we can create a system that is specific to our needs, but also solves most of our problems. That's why I also have the 3 dots. Most likely in all of this, we have forgotten a few things and we need to still think about some other things that we need to implement. But we can basically use, again, off-the-shelf open source software and adjust that to our needs so that we can get things up and running very quickly and very nicely. So yeah, with the use of these modular web systems, we hope we can get the community working around this. If you look at other projects like the CentOS project, the Fedora project, even the Debian project, they typically use open source toolings. There's no one tool to solve all the problems. We're not looking for a hammer to hammer a screw in. We'll use a screwdriver for that. And so we are looking to use the best tool for the job. And we're always open to suggestions. If you know any tools that are better, we have the ability now also to exchange some of these tools to better tools if they would ever arise. So thank you for listening. I don't know if there are any questions.
Toshaan.
Yeah.
I just want to say I've done web systems, so I know that was a serious amount of work. That's really impressive. I have a suggestion. Have you heard of Apache Mod Page Speed?
Yes.
I've used it to good effect, and it saved me a huge amount of time. I didn't have to optimize images or CSS or website pages, and it got under half a second load time for a very slow piece of hardware. So I can thoroughly recommend it. It saves an
I will look into that, but for the moment we have Hugo, which is doing a lot of optimizations in the backend. And maybe in the future we would need Hugo, mod page speed in addition for certain things. We haven't finalized everything yet, like I said, but I know there are some components which are slightly slower than others. If you, for instance, have in our document system a document of a few thousand pages, and you try to refresh that, that takes a long time. That's most likely not something that mod page speed can help us with.
Yeah, it will. It does above the fold rewriting, transparent rewriting, the transparent proxy, and it does all of the CSS above the fold things and everything. It's pretty incredible and powerful. It covers about 45 separate different HTML, CSS, and JavaScript optimizations, which normally you would take a year to deploy manually. It's deeply impressive.
I'll take a look at it, and if we need it, we will implement it. For the moment, our static website is loading in a few milliseconds. I think we are even under the 2 milliseconds for the moment. So it's not something we need on that side, but there are other systems where we will definitely need it because not everything is as performant. Most of the front-end website, we're trying to switch to static website, so we don't need to worry about speed. We can do a lot of caching, but maybe mod page speed even makes it faster.
Well, we'll talk about it another time.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, fantastic.
Any other questions or suggestions? Okay, then I will let you go to the panel. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
If you do have any questions or suggestions, you know where to find me.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.